Hello and welcome. I'm Jake Kuzarek, Managing Director of Arcview Management Consulting, and your host to kick things off today. Now, as a native Michigander myself, I am truly honored to find myself introducing Arcview's first ever Michigan Town Hall. With nearly $1 billion generated in cannabis sales in 2020 alone, and a staggering 171% growth so far in 2021, it's fair to say that Michigan and cannabis go together like coney dogs and mustard. What separates us from our neighbors, Ohio, is that our state takes immense pride in our contributions to American culture. Motown in Hitsville, USA, hot rods and muscle cars, Detroit-style pizza. Techno music was born in Detroit. And who can forget about Ann Arbor's famed Hash Bash, running strong since 1972. This culture, along with our unrivaled outdoor recreation and true pioneer spirit, catalyzed the perfect breeding ground for an appreciation of cannabis plant to take root within our state. Led by Michigan's Marijuana Regulatory Agency, in 2008, we became the first state in the Midwest to launch a medical marijuana program. As the 10th state to legalize adult use and the third largest market overall, behind only California and Colorado, we are a force to be reckoned with. I mean, there are literally as many medical patients in Michigan as there are in all of Canada, and we're not done yet. Michigan has been showing some of the highest sales growth of any legal cannabis market in the US, and our sales are expected to eventually eclipse $3 billion. Now, it hasn't all been perfect. In many ways, we failed to address restorative justice alongside legalization and are falling short to grant expungements for those incarcerated for actions which our leaders now openly praise. Many of you will be familiar with the case of Michael Thompson, 25 years behind bars for 3 pounds of cannabis. We count that as a win, as he was facing, 40 to 60 years, but it's far from it, as many more like Michael aren't having their stories told. To clarify our stance on this, cannabis should not put you in jail, and certainly it should not ever merit a life sentence. So in closing, I challenge you all today to ask yourself, as innovators in Michigan's developing cannabis market, how can your actions embody the spirit of our famed Pure Michigan campaign? Does Pure Michigan mean higher quality products? How about a greater focus on social and racial justice in cannabis? The future and vision is yours to craft, and the legacy you leave behind will impact generations of Michiganders to come. All right. Well, as many of you may have noticed, Arcview has been and will be running monthly town halls focused on different state markets. We also have our Arcview Access webinars or Women's Inclusion Network meetings, collective fund meetings in which companies showcase for capital to our network of investors, and special edition events like our first ever psychedelics event hosted just a few weeks ago. All of our webinars are hosted over on arcviewaccess.com, and replays of past content is available free of charge and fully public. We also simulcast on social media, so if you haven't already, like, follow, subscribe, visit us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. The reason we're able to bring this content to you today is because of our sponsors and partners. Our strategic alliance program forged between Arcview, ProClinical, Exec Search, GrowFlow, Alpha Root Insurance, Dwayne Morris, Transact First, even Zuber Lawler and Green Tank are not only underwrites these webinars, but our partners truly help drive the subject matter we're focused on each month. These best-in-class partners are always looking forward to connecting with you if you're in need, so please don't hesitate to let us know where your needs may lie. Today, Michigan's own Backcross Solutions is our program sponsor, and they'll be joining me over in Jake's Sponsor Corner before we kick off our panel today, which features Rebecca Collette, CEO of Collexium, a female and minority-owned cannabis cultivation and processing operation, and founder of the Detroit Cannabis Project. Latoya Rucker, COO of Collexium as well. Robin Schneider, Executive Director of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. Mark Passerini, long-term Arcview member, but of course co-founder of Ann Arbor's Ohm of Medicine, currently EVP of BD for Forefront. And of course, Corey Roberts, co-founder of Michigan Canna House, based in Muskegon, and a legacy grower. What a lineup, to say the least. With that said, let's get rolling. Ajay, I'd ask you to put your camera on, and we're going to break into Jake's Sponsor Corner. Excellent. As discussed, today's partner is Backcross Solutions, and our guest today is Ajay Chawla, co-founder of Backcross Solutions, the leader in cannabis IT with 32 years of combined experience, headquartered in Troy, Michigan. Ajay, it's a pleasure to have you joining us today. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Well, let's kick things off. Please give us a brief overview of Backcross's services and how you stand out amongst other IT companies.
Sure. Backcross Solutions is an IT strategic consulting firm and services firm. We've been in the business now for a number of years. Myself and my partners have been in this business for over 32 years. And really, over the last couple of years, really thought that there needed to be a focused company just on the cannabis market. The velocity in which it's moving with the regulations and rules put forward by different states really lends itself to an industry of its own. And that's why we focus solely on cannabis here. We have a number of clients in the industry, and we're growing with them. No pun intended, but we are growing with them every day, and it's been a really fun ride up to this point, and we continue to find new customers and new prospects every day. We just met with another grow today here in Warren, Michigan.
Excellent. And what are your core areas of focus within this space? Cybersecurity, IT support.
Yeah, I think we kind of run the span of it. IT strategy as a whole. As you're starting your company, everybody used to say two things you never used to want to start without was accounting and legal. And I would put IT in there now. So we go through the whole strategy, whether it's physical IT from an infrastructure standpoint and networking standpoint, to really, database management, business intelligence, and last but not least, certainly not least, is cybersecurity. I think that's a hot button today. Everybody's seeing the pipeline news and the meatpacking factory news, and there was a major insurance company that just was taken ransom. So, as the industry begins or continues to grow, they become a high target for hackers around the globe.
Of course. So clearly your services are critical for anybody active in cannabis, but shifting gears a bit, can you share a little bit about some of the crazier breaches you've seen?
Yeah, I think one of them happened not too long ago, where a client called us and they said, "Hey, we're in need of some cybersecurity." And I said, "What happened?" And they said, "Well, we had one of our store employees was running a check over to somebody for a new license in one of the cities nearby, and he had just happened to call that guy to ask him where he was, and he said, 'Hey, I'm going to drop the check off. We got this new license.' And he said, 'Wait, we haven't even applied for a license there. Hold off.'" And the email looked like a very official email, and phishing's real in every industry, and we've seen a number of phishing attacks in the cannabis industry, which is part of one of the things that we protect, not only by software and monitoring, but also by training of employees.
Wow, scary stuff to say the least. And I know we'll be covering attacks like this later in the webinar. Now, why did you decide to expand into the cannabis industry?
Mine happened by happenstance. One of my very, very close friends decided he was going to leave the sporting goods industry and become the CEO of a major cannabis, or at that time, a small cannabis company, and asked us to come in and do an assessment of what they had in their grow. And it became apparent to me at that point that, he needed help. And it became apparent to him that he really didn't know what he was doing as far as technology. And when we walked in, the grow was a beautiful grow, and they had all the bells and whistles. And then we asked, the head operator of their grow, how are you controlling your watering systems? And he pulled out his cell phone and he said, "It's right here." And I said, "Well, how is that secure?" And he said, "Well, I'm sure it is." And within minutes, we showed him that we could actually hack into that watering system and turn off the water for his crop, which for many of you who are in the grow part of the industry know that that's a pretty expensive mistake or hack. So that started us out. That was our first deal 2.5 years ago, and we've been growing ever since, both on the grow side and the processing and the dispensary side.
Sure. Phishing schemes, hacks. What are some other threats that can compromise companies who don't have a strong IT backend?
Well,
Any other real-life
yeah,
examples? Yeah.
one of the things that we stress with our clients is vendor selection. There are a number of new software packages that are out there, whether it's for HR for cannabis or ERPs for cannabis, new tracking, BI for cannabis. And when you're looking at vendor selection, you really need to go deeper into what threats are inherent with that certain software package, whether they have disaster recovery built in, what type of measures they have. And if they don't, well, then you need to wrap something around it. And I think that's a common mishap when people in the cannabis industry who are concentrating on growing and selling really don't have the time or the know-how to go back and look and do a software and code and say, oh, this isn't protected from this or that. And they think a lot of the stuff off the shelf, because it's marketed really well, is protected. So I think that's one of the things that stands out. And then, like I said at the beginning, phishing is huge, and the number one kind of break in the system is our employees, right? And access control. When they leave, are we shutting off their access? Do they leave a backdoor, quote unquote, a backdoor in some application open where they can take customer data? It just happened to one of our clients not too long ago. So it's all real stuff, and it's coming down the pipe hard, fast, and furious. And I think we're seeing it in every industry.
Excellent. And who is your ideal client?
We say we have two kind of thought processes on that. The first one is anybody who views cannabis as a business and not a hobby. I think cannabis is a big business now, and so you have to view it as that, right? And the second thing is anybody who is really interested in using technology as a weapon in the industry, and really a differentiator and a value add. Those are our two biggest clients. We've started with the one store dispensary, and still have many of those, and we also service places that have the full supply chain from grow to process to 15, 20 dispensaries.
Sure. And you're fully national. So that always comes.
We're a national provider.
Excellent.
Offices across the country.
Well, we always close out with the same question around here. What is the best way to get in touch with you? And are there any offers you're currently running for Arcview's network?
Sure. I think, the best way to get in touch with us is visit our website, backcrosssolutions.com. There is a, contact page on there. You can also email us directly at info@backcrosssolutions.com. And then, one of the offers that we're offering today is a free security assessment. So have us come in, when I say us, one of our security experts come in, look at your landscape, give you some ideas, and also do a vulnerability test. So we know where you guys are vulnerable. And, so that's where we start with that. And we'd be happy to do it for anybody on this town hall or that sees it later.
I love that. Very generous. Thank you, Ajay. And that's backcrosssolutions.com, info@backcrosssolutions.com if you want to hit them directly. And do not forget to mention the Michigan Town Hall. We'll look forward to hearing from you more later. Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Of course. Now, some of you may have noticed Kim Kovacs, former CEO of Arcview, is now in a new role with Santa Fe Farms. I had the honor of supporting Kim as she took the reins from Troy Dayton and Steve D'Angelo and shepherded us through the pandemic, guiding Arcview into a place in which we've never been stronger. With Kim's assistance, we launched this webinar series, our broker-dealer, Arcview Capital, our Women's Inclusion Network, and Arcview Management Consulting. Any one of these would have been a massive undertaking. So on behalf of Arcview, we remain eternally grateful to Kim for her leadership. As a fellow Michigander, Kim will be moderating today's town hall. So without further ado, I'll pass the mic over to Kim.
Thank you so much, Jake. See, you can't get rid of me. I keep popping up, and now I'm floating among this cannabis leaf in the Michigan skyline. So that's the Fisher Building, one of the sides. I couldn't remember which one that was, but we got Renson and Fisher Building. So anyway, thank you so much. And what a pleasure to be back here on the stage with Arcview. And as Jake mentioned, Michigan is my home state as well. Spent a little time in Troy, Michigan there, so kind of knew what you're talking about a little bit. But really, I grew up in Ann Arbor. And for those of you who kind of know a little bit about Ann Arbor, a little bit of a funky town, college town, but I really thought pot was legal. I mean, to be honest with you, growing up there, because we had the hash bash, which is at the Diag, and, kids would sit out there and people, passers, buyers would be sort of, coming in and joining. And the pot laws were very, very lenient, if you will. So it wasn't legal, but it was very lenient. But since those days, cannabis has taken a lot of turns in Michigan. But I think one thing is really clear. It has been part of our community. It's been part of our culture, and it's been accepted by many of the residents in Michigan since those early days. And so today we're going to talk about the evolution of the legalization of cannabis in Michigan, the impact that it's had on our community, on our economy, on caregivers also along the way, and really how the state, I believe, has truly led the pack when it comes to some of these programs that they've been rolling out. And I'd say maybe doing it in a little bit of a better way than my now home state of California. So to get started, we've got these incredible panelists. And the way that this is sort of structured today, we're going to hear a little bit from our panelists. Each of them are going to introduce themselves, give you a little bit of background about themselves. And then we're going to dive into questions that you guys have asked us already in advance. And we've got some of the members of our community here and ready to ask our panelists these great questions. So let's get started with Robin. Robin, come on and join. Why don't all the panelists turn theirs on so we can just kind of see everybody as we go through our intros. Robin, I can't see you yet, but I know you're there.
There it is.
Hi there. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off and tell us a little bit about you and what you're doing there in Michigan.
Sure. I'm Robin Schneider. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. We are the state's largest cannabis trade association with over 300 members. We launched in January of 2019 after we won our adult use ballot initiative, which I worked on. I was the finance director for that campaign, so I raised the money to put that on the ballot initiative. And now we're legal and business is good, as we heard some of the stats earlier, and things are going well here.
Awesome. Welcome. Hey, Mark, why don't you join us? Tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Thanks, Kim. So my name is Mark Passerini. I'm the co-founder of the Home of Medicine in beautiful downtown Ann Arbor. I actually work with Robin as the vice chairman of the board for the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. And I am currently the executive vice president for Forefront Ventures. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to be a part of the Arcview community.
Absolutely. And you're one of our sort of first members. We were chatting off stage a little bit ago about the second Arcview event. I can't believe it. That was a long time ago. Rebecca and Latoya, welcome to Arcview and this town hall. So happy to have you here.
Hi, we're so excited to be here. Thanks, Kim. Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca Collette. I'm the CEO of Collexium.
Hi, everyone. My name is Latoya Rucker, and I'm the COO of Collexium. We represent women, community, diversity, and empowerment.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. My name's Corey Roberts. I'm a Muskegon native and third-generation cannabis cultivator with over 28 years experience in the traditional wholesale market. As a flower connoisseur and research and development specialist, I concentrate and focus on craft small batch selections. After being unjustly imprisoned within the Michigan Department of Corrections for a misdemeanor marijuana possession charge, I furthered my education in horticulture and digital electronics. Upon completing a 5-year sentence, I became an intrinsically driven, sacred plant advocate nationally accredited recovery coach, and a mental health specialist. Recently, I co-founded Michigan Canna House. We will be a seed to consumption licensed operator within the city of Muskegon, focused on artisan small batch cultivation driven by in-house genetic selections using a safe environmental approach. Our retail and lounge will offer the opportunity to purchase and experience cannabis in a sociable restaurant-style atmosphere with like-minded and inquisitive cannabis consumers. We are excited to set the standard on what the U.S. integrated cannabis company should look like. Thank you.
Thanks, Corey. So, you know what I said at the beginning, I love this format because we get to ask the panelists and everybody here like really hard questions, but really from our community and what they're really looking to know and get out of this program. So our first guest today is Patrick Pierce. So Patrick, come on the show and let's hear what you would like to know from these panelists about Michigan.
Sure thing. Well, you know, I'm a PR manager out here with Oster & Associates in San Diego. The agency's been around 35 years. We've done a lot of work in the growing industry in and around horticulture and produce and now the cannabis space. And so for us, you know, it's been quite exciting. We've worked with dispensaries, we've worked with brands as they get started, tech company, coffee and tea company, cannabis infused. Helping some groups get their licenses, that kind of thing. So we've been a little bit around the country, and I think from my side of things, I'm originally from Kansas City, so kind of the Midwesterner in me is certainly very excited to hear about the Michigan market and hear how things are going, because certainly the perspective is out here on the West Coast right now is that Michigan has got a lot of things going in the right direction. And so I'm very eager to hear from our panelists today and kind of get their feedback on things. And so my question really is, how has Michigan been so successful at opening up its recreational cannabis market?
Robin, you want to kick that off?
Sure. So, we had an interesting start. We were very new in our medical marijuana program here. We hadn't been very established yet. And so we really were struggling with supply and demand issues in the beginning. We didn't quite have enough product grown to meet the consumer demand in the medical market. And then we launched recreational sales using our medical supply. So that, was an unusual way to start an adult use program. And so that further, increased the demand for the limited amount of product that we had. And over the last couple of years, the state has done an excellent job at issuing the licenses needed to help increase the grows and the processors and get that product to market. And so it is starting to stabilize a little bit, but every couple of months, it kind of sways the other way. It will have, too much product and then there's not enough. And either the retailers are unhappy or the growers are unhappy. So it goes back and forth every couple of months and then it tips the, scales the other way. But I will say that, there's a lot of room for growth here, which is amazing. We've only had a very small portion of our municipalities opt in because we are a local opt-in state and we are a very free market. There's no state caps. There's no caps allowed. So the state can't say we're going to have this many grows. It is unlimited. But the local municipalities typically cap them either through a number or zoning caps. And so that kind of happens naturally on a local level, but it leaves a lot of opportunity for new municipalities to continue opting in and continued growth and investment in our state. I think we're projected to be about over $3 billion a year in sales here in Michigan, according to a study. In fact, you can go to the MRA's website and find that study. And there's a lot of room for investment here in Michigan.
Awesome. Hey, Mark, anything on that?
Yeah, I think Robin did a great job of kind of outlining why we've had so much success in Michigan. I think a couple of other things that might have had something to do with it is the fact that we do have the lowest taxes for adult use, I believe, in the country.
Yeah.
10%. It makes it a little bit easier for people to walk into a store and not feel as if they're getting killed on the taxes like they do in a lot of states, like Washington, California, even Illinois in the Midwest. So I think that that's one of the big reasons why we've had some success in the first year of legalization. But also, we are surrounded by a lot of states that either are only medical with very high taxes, don't have a lot of selection, or are prohibition states like Indiana. Indiana, it's going to be a while before you see them legalize. And I know that a lot of the dispensaries down in what I call the wrist of the hand here, the southwest side, they see a ton of Indiana folks, a lot of Illinois people, even though we are legal. We do have legalization in the city of Chicago and Illinois. There's still a lot of people that will take the 1 hour drive up to Michigan because they have a better selection, lower taxes, lower prices. So I think taxes are a big part of it. Also, I would say that we do enjoy a lot of support from our political leaders in the state of Michigan. There's a lot of states that you see them falter on their rollout, and it's mainly because of the fact that either their governor or their attorney general or a group of senators and reps just are fighting it at every turn. And here in Michigan, we have an attorney general that literally has she said that she attributes her win, an attorney general a few years back, to the cannabis community's support. So she's very supportive. So is our governor. Obviously, they're not perfect. There's a lot of things that we still need to see done, and we're pushing them to do so. But we do have the support of our leadership. So that's all I would add.
Yeah, well, amazing. And you do need that. I mean, we've seen it when we haven't had the support of leadership, how bad that goes. Rebecca and Latoya, you guys are operating within the state, so I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. So thank you, Patrick. I think one of the reasons is since cannabis has been legal medically since 2008, it's created a cannabis culture in Michigan where people see cannabis as positive, and it has a lot of community support. A lot of people believe that cannabis is a medicine and that it's healing and that it can do great things for our jobs and for our community. So that's one reason. But another reason is since our caregivers have been legal since 2008. We have a lot of high quality cannabis talent in Michigan, a lot of talented growers, people that can make extracts and edibles. We've been doing it for a very long time. And so that's a huge reason why our market is so successful, is because we have great products. And at the end of the day, people travel, just like Mark said, for the high quality products. And we have some of the best quality in the world.
Yeah, and I think also because of the MRA, they've been really open to having work groups from the very beginning, and just listening to people in the industry, getting our opinion as they write the laws and the rules and regulations that exist. So I think that really helps when you have a regulatory body that is somewhat on the side of the people that really started and pioneered the industry.
I'd like to just add to that, if that's okay. One of the things that I noticed when working with some of my counterparts in other states was that they didn't have good relationships with the regulatory agencies at all. And they had a really difficult time getting them to listen to their ideas. And those programs don't go very well. Ohio is prime example. They have 3 different departments regulating their program, and they don't have, one decision maker. And so those departments are disagreeing with each other. They're giving conflicting information about, rules and regulations. And it's really a nightmare for those licensees to navigate. Where here in Michigan, they are so good at hearing us and addressing our concerns, and just very, deliberate in making sure that, we're being treated with good customer service. Okay. And that's a rare thing. So I definitely have to give props to our state, because we're definitely leaders in that.
Awesome. Hey, Corey, what are you thinking about this?
Kim, I appreciate Patrick asking this question. I've always been under the impression that we've had a very strong consumer base within this state. We can look back to before 2008, when the citizens of this state initiated the first medical marijuana program here. maybe it wasn't being cultivated in the warehouse and out in fields, but it was crossing the state line coming into Michigan in semi-loads. I grew up with it being the norm. The majority of the people I knew consumed cannabis, and they would sell cannabis to their loved ones, their friends, and their coworkers. In 2008, when the citizens of the state initiated the MMP, some of the local municipalities were welcoming of it because they wanted this in their community. They knew the benefits to our socioeconomic climate that this could provide. Muskegon being one of those cities, they adopted an ordinance that allows for caregivers. It not only allows for caregivers in compassion centers, but it also allows caregivers to be stacked in industrial properties. So there's been a large base here. And if you've got quality, high quality product, the demand usually outweighs that as long as you have a reasonable pricing. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, so if I can recap the answer for you here, Patrick, and maybe a couple of words. So I heard quality product equaling low taxes, equaling support from regulators, and really listening support, not just kind of like, yeah, thanks. And support from the community sounds like a winning combination here for Michigan. So hopefully that answered your question. And I hope the other states are listening. So when you get to write your rules and regs, that you kind of hear what's happening here in Michigan and follow suit. So thanks, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
So we've got another great question here from one of our community members. So I'd like to bring up Mike Lamuto. I hope I said that right, Mike. And Mike, please give us a little bit about you and your background, and also ask your question for the panelists.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Kim, and thanks everybody for having me here today. I'm newly with the NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association. My role is to develop our diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, which includes our social equity initiatives, which is something I'm very passionate about. I've been in the industry over 20 years myself, just coming from the legacy space in San Francisco and California, and really am committed to seeing this industry develop in the right way. And a lot of the conversations we have at the NCAA and a lot of the questions that we field are about what's going on in different states with social equity, who's doing it right, what are some good policies, what are some good programs. And Michigan actually keeps coming up as somewhere recently that is doing some good work. I know with Rebecca from Coixium here as one of our board members, I think that really is indicative of that. And so, my question is basically, what are the specific things? What are the programs, the policies? Like, what makes Michigan special when it comes to social equity, and why are people pointing to it as a leader in this area?
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, why don't you kick us off with that one?
Certainly. Thanks for the question. I think one of the reasons social equity is good in Michigan, but continuously getting better is because one of the reasons Robin already stated, our regulatory agency, the MRA, are very proactive listeners. They have work groups, they send out surveys, and they ask the Michigan cannabis community, what do we need to be doing better? And they actually implement some of those suggestions, and they actually update you on the suggestions that they're implementing into the improvement of their social equity program. And then another thing that I think is awesome about our regulatory agency is that they continuously have these social equity informational webinars, which invite different members of our Michigan cannabis community to educate social equity applicants. And I've had the pleasure of partnering with the MRA with the Detroit Cannabis Project, which is a 1-month-long social equity incubator where we educate social equity applicants on all types of technical business topics. And the MRA is one of our partners, and they've been an amazing partner helping us get the word out, telling people about us. And I don't hear that happening in any other state. So I just really like how proactive they've been and how reachable they've been. And slowly but surely, as the years go by, we continuously improve our social equity program because we aren't there yet. It's all about improvement. We're making progress. We're taking steps forward, not back.
That's awesome. Robin, we talked a little bit about the homegrown fund, so I want to hear more about that too.
Yes. So, we entered into a public-private partnership with the city of Detroit, And, we're very excited about it. They approached us and said, we need some help. We said we'd be happy to help. And so we opened a fund, a philanthropic fund. And our members are, donating money into that fund, which will be used for grants and zero interest loans for Detroit Legacy applicants. One of the biggest things that we hear is a barrier is the startup capital. There's no startup capital provided. And so, given the idea that we may be able to, partner with the city and a bank, and with the help of cannabis business owners who, for the sake of social equity programs, to be good, corporate responsibility, to, solicit them for donations. And we've had, Jars Cannabis contributed $25,000. House of Dank gave $100,000, and they're going to, do monthly until they reach 1 million. And so we've got some other companies that are about to come in at very high levels. So I feel really good about that fund. Some are smaller. I don't want the big numbers to scare people away. Some are smaller, and that's okay too. But just the idea that there are companies in the state that are capable and care enough to give those kinds of dollars to help somebody else get a foot in the door, it feels really good to be a part of something like that. And so that is what the fund does. So if anybody's interested, you can reach us at info@micia.org, and we can give more information about that fund and how you can help with the program.
Good. We'll put that up in the chat. So everybody take a look at that and do what you can. LaToya, let's go to you. Anything that you'd like to add into this part of the conversation?
Yeah, so we are social equity applicants on the city and the state level. So, we were definitely very grateful that we were able to receive a discount, not only on our application fee, but on our license fee. And as Robin stated, Rebecca's also stated, cannabis has a very high barrier to entry. So any little bit helps, as they say. And so that's super exciting to be a part, to be a resident of a state that kind of looks out for you in that way.
That's awesome. Corey, Mark, why don't you guys add in here, and we'll give a little recap to Mike on what we think on the social equity question.
I have a social equity status with the state of Michigan for my previously mentioned incarceration within the Michigan Department of Corrections. At the age of 17, I was found in possession of a small amount of marijuana and placed on probation. Over the course of some years, I continued to violate probation for consuming cannabis. I had chose that was my safe alternative to deal with some early childhood trauma I had experienced. Throughout the course of completing all community corrections programs that were presented to me and still using cannabis, the judge finally gave me a 16 to 24-month sentence. Upon arriving in prison, I was classified as an unsecure level 1, which meant I was supposed to go outside of prison every day and work, then come back and sleep at night. However, due to lack of bed space within the prison, I was placed in a level 2 prison. My first cellmate served 2 natural life sentences. He's still incarcerated. We're speaking about, I went to prison for basically consuming cannabis. And they put me in a place where Michael Thompson was finally released from. I'm grateful for the social equity program because the citizens of the state, when they put this on the ballot, they let it be known. They wanted some restorative justice to be handed out. Now, through that adoption of a social equity program within the state, people heard about it. Local community leaders heard about it, and they decided they wanted to implement this. So throughout the social equity program and the positive PR that comes along with it, we were able to get a unique zoning that'll allow us to operate out of the traditional overlay district in the city we're in. And the discount is nice too, because as everybody on this panel has mentioned, the entry is high. The capital expenses, the operating expenses to get, to a point where you're actually bringing in a revenue you can do something with, it's pretty outstanding. So for the state to offer me 50% off of all application and licensing fees, I'm appreciative of that. And there's some who have felonies, and if they've been a caregiver, they can even get 75% off. So I think that's remarkable. I think the state opening up the areas where they allow social equity applicants to apply and businesses to operate was huge as well. They acknowledged that the first list they put out wasn't enough. There had been far more communities that had been negatively impacted at a disproportionate rate. So I applaud the state of Michigan for what they're doing. I applaud them for inviting individuals from the legacy market, such as myself, into the work groups so we can voice our opinion on what we think will help not only the community, the citizens here in Michigan, but the emerging industry as well.
I'll go. There's not much more I can add, but I got to say that listening to Corey talk and listening to his story just reminds me of a good friend of mine that ended up in federal prison for doing the exact same thing I'm doing. And I went down to visit him in Morgantown, West Virginia, 4 or 5 times while he was down there for a couple of years. Robin came with me on one of those trips. And one of the things that really struck me was asking him, what's everybody in here for? And basically the entire prison was for one of 2 things: drug offenses and white collar crime. And it was so stark and clear as day who were the white collar crimes and who were the drug offenses. I mean, it was mind boggling. I mean, we all know about it. We hear about it. Everybody in the cannabis industries knows that there's just such a disproportionate situation, but when you see it, it's disgusting. And it makes me, it gets me kind of like angry. And I feel like, yes, the state has done a really good job at putting these programs together, but the implementation, I think, is a little bit slow. I'd like to see a little bit more, with the expungement issue. It took too long to get Michael Thompson out of prison. That should have been done on day one. I'm really excited about the Homegrown Detroit program. Like Robin had mentioned already, we are working with them pretty closely as an association, and I think that's going to be positive and successful. That's all I've got.
No, and Mark, thanks for bringing that up, because I think that's an important takeaway here, is that we still have a lot of people incarcerated for what would not be a crime today. And we really need to focus a lot of attention and energy on that, across the country. And, Arcview is a big supporter of the Last Prisoner Project, which was able to get him home in Michigan. So, thanks for highlighting that. So, Mike, I hope we answered your question. I'm going to recap this in about 3 words too. So we'll see if I'm right on this. But so what I heard is that regulators are being proactive, not only listeners, but implementers, that they're actually taking what they're hearing and turning that into action, which I think is important for other regulators maybe to hear sometimes. I also hear that education is very key, and that we can't expect someone to stand up a business without having any experience per se. And so education for anyone really, and social equity applicants in particular, I think is very important. I love that comment. And then funding. So it is the initial capital outlay. It's pretty expensive, but it's also the follow-on rounds. And I want to keep everybody open to the idea that, Arcview is here and we can help in a lot of ways to get some of these additional funding. But I love the fact that Michigan is standing up a grant program and a 0 interest loan, because that's really where that risk capital needs to come from. It's really some of those early stage ones. So, please you look at this homegrown fund, and if you guys can help support that, that would be great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
So we got another good question here from one of our community members, Tracy. So Tracy, if you could come on up. I think she's going to actually ask a question from Pam DeLeon, but she couldn't make it. And so Tracy's going to act as her proxy for this.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tracy McAfee, and I am the co-founder and CEO of CryoCure. Our company has developed a patent pending process and technology. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. It's a process and technology. Of course, my debut and my dogs go crazy. That allows you to perfectly dry and cure cannabis in as little as 12 to 13 hours, right off the plant, ready to consume. And that's with no plant degradation or shrinkage. It's quite an incredible process. and I'm happy to be here today. And my question to the panelists is there's quite a stir going on right now on the current situation with caregivers and MSOs. And do you think there's room for both? Thank you.
Corey, you want to take that one first?
I think it's really important to be conscious of the fact that what we're experiencing here in Michigan, although MSOs may be involved, it started here. These were the opposition to legalization from day one. As licensure has advanced through the state and became available, this is their attempts to draw back and increase their market share. I don't agree with what I see. I've attempted to look at this through many different lenses, and I can't find any admirable amounts of integrity within these actions. The caregivers, they play such a vital role within the community in providing cannabinoid extract to the terminally ill. You know, one of the things that I'm proudest of being able to accomplish in my life so far was partnering with Wayne State University's Behavioral Health Department and Criminal Justice section, them in a harm reduction of Michigan, where I was able to, along with my teammates, provide fully charged cannabinoid extract as a harm reduction tool to opioid dependent people. When we see the caregivers removed from this system and we see the clamp down of the terminology, such as saying something's medically beneficial and that's only allowed in the federally regulated market that we may end up seeing, that's really going to take that away. The cost for that treatment, it's pretty high when you attempt to purchase it from one of the retail markets in the state. I think there is room for everybody to exist, though, as long as we are operating with integrity. As I mentioned, Muskegon being welcoming to the cannabis community, one of the things they've done to try to move some of the people out of the caregiver system or the traditional legacy market is they've went ahead and said, okay, any location in the city where we have zoned in and are going to allow caregivers, we are also going to allow the micro grow license, and we're going to allow the 100 plant license. We're not going to open up every building in the city to retail and processing, but we're going to attempt to be inclusive so we can try to create a happy medium or build a bridge between the industry and the community itself.
Robin, let's talk about caregivers.
Okay, so this has been awful, and it's been humiliating. It's made our industry look bad. So I haven't enjoyed this. And I guess what I will say about our members, every single one of our board members, we have 13 board members. Mark is one of them. And they all started out as caregivers. And then they worked hard to get a foot in the door into this industry. So they're very sentimental about where our state came from. And any talk about peeling back other people's rights or increased criminal penalties is kind of a non-starter for our board. And I will say that I'm really grateful for the people that I work for because they're good. And they've never once said to me, Robin, I think we need to go after those pesky little caregivers to shore up our profit margins. Quite the opposite. They have said, keep your eye on the price. Focus on the regulated market. Focus on the rules. What can we do within our own framework to make us more profitable without causing harm to other people? The second thing I will add, and I think that's really smart. There are a lot of little things over the last couple of years that we've identified that were regulatory obstacles that we have worked on to streamline some things to make operations more profitable. And I think that is the appropriate place where a trade association should be focusing. So that's our philosophy. And I think the second part to that is our members really care about their brands. Mm-hmm. They want to be seen as the good guys in the industry. We know that the patients and caregivers have relationships and that your brand name is everything. And so I'm very protective in everything that I do as a lobbyist. I'm always thinking, would this potentially be harmful to my member's brand? And I'm very thoughtful that I would never do anything to harm their reputations, and they know that. So it's a very symbiotic, mutual respect thing. They've never asked me to do anything, considered bad, but yet they do have expectations of things that I am supposed to be working on, which I'm pretty good at delivering those things. But we have an understanding that we don't need to harm other people in that process. I think Mark should probably, Mark.
Yeah, I want to hear from Mark. And also, how many caregivers are still, would you say, in the state of Michigan? I know there were a lot before, too.
30,000 right now.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Best estimate. I think Robin did a great job answering that. And the only thing that I would add, my good friend of mine, and actually the co-founder of our company, Chris Crane, he sits on the board with Rebecca on the NCIA board. Chris Crane wrote a great article 2 years ago. I forget the name of it, but something along the lines of big cannabis companies don't need to be greedy.
Don't be greedy.
The premise of the article is essentially, I think it was a situation in New York State where a lot of the bigger companies were doing very similar things as what they're doing in Michigan, trying to strip away rights and take away home grows. And he just pointed out point by point and every argument on why home grows are important and why, and everybody should be able to grow a plant in their home. No rights should be taken away. And in Michigan, like Robin said, we had a really good system here for a long time. It wasn't regulated, but it was a cottage industry that was working very well. And we had thousands of small grows throughout the state supplying all of our dispensaries, which at one point, I think we had 400 or 500 dispensaries in the state before we regulated. And it worked well. I mean, the quality was there, the prices were down. So I would just suggest for the larger companies that are a part of the other association that are trying to strip away these caregiver rights, read that article. It's from Forbes. I want to say it was March or April of 2019. If you just Google Forbes, Chris Crane, and greed, you'll find it. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Well, we'll try to get that posted in chat if we can find it. But those are 3 good keyword searches, I think, that might pop that article up on its own.
I forgot about the chat. I'll look it up right now.
Cool.
And put it in. Yep.
Awesome. LaToya, you were a caregiver, so I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah. So as I stated, I was a caregiver in 2008, and it's the reason why I'm here today. It's the reason why Collexium exists. I think it's room for both. Absolutely. I hate to compare cannabis to alcohol, but so that I can compare, there's craft breweries that exist and people love those craft brews. And then there's those big companies that, create, Coors Light and things like that. So I think there's room for both. I think the MSOs need to embrace the culture in Michigan because it is different. It's not like any other state. And I think they need to understand that, patients need a variety. If you're talking about caregivers, you're strictly talking about medical. You're not talking about recreational. And so I think they need to be separate in the conversation. And so there are sick people that have illnesses that a huge MSO may not have access to a genetic or may not have access to a certain type of RSO that someone that is really sick needs. So that's really important.
Rebecca, you want to add in anything here on this one?
Yeah, basically just echoing everything LaToya said, patients are first. And the patient should have a choice whether they want to walk into a dispensary and talk to a bud tender, or if they prefer to have a personal relationship with the same caregiver they've had maybe for the last 10 years. They should have that choice.
Yeah, no, totally agree with that. In fact, one of my dear friends, she has stage 4 breast cancer, and she's been under a caregiver for the last 2 years, and she's in remission. And there was no way that was going to happen if she had to go buy off the shelf product in a dispensary in California because of what the combination that she needed to continue to see improvement in her situation. So I'm not saying anything, but it's an N of one, and that's one person I really care about. And so we really do need to think about this as we start to, legalize state by state, but also, as we approach towards federal legalization. I mean, how are we going to handle this on a broader scale across the country? And making sure that we are doing what's best for the people that want to consume, right? I think we sometimes lose sight of that. So anyway, thank you so much. And thank you, Tracy, for that question. So I'm going to ask one, actually, as kind of a cannabis investor, always near and dear to my heart, asking questions on behalf of other investors. And so I'm going to shoot this one kind of over to Mark. So Mark, if we were going to be giving out some not investment advice, but maybe some advice for investors. And, what do you think is sort of, aspects of the growth in Michigan or some of the things that are happening in Michigan that investors should be aware of and maybe starting to look at to maybe include in their sort of portfolio now, maybe an investment or two in Michigan?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question, Kim. I would say there's a number of things that are very attractive about the Michigan market. One, like it's been mentioned a number of times, is that we are a leader in the Midwest. There's no doubt about that. Michigan was the first to be medical in the Midwest. It was the first to go adult use in the Midwest. All of these things really were led by the state of Michigan. But there are also some really unique licenses in the law. We have micro businesses written into our licenses, which allow for people to have a small grow attached to a retail and processing, all under one roof, which is very cool. Kind of goes back to that cottage industry I had mentioned earlier. But we also have social consumption licenses, which personally I'm very excited. I'm a big fan of Amsterdam. I've been going since the 1900s, and I can't wait to have a place to consume my cannabis. But I do think that because of the way the MRA is so supportive of the program and our leadership, I do think that there's so much opportunity in the sense of when you invest, you want to invest in a leader in a geographic location, and I think Michigan is definitely that. I live now. I'm right now. I'm in Chicago. I'm a Chicago native, and watching what's happening in Illinois is a little disconcerting for me. Being a Chicago native, I kind of want to move back to Michigan. But yeah, I mean, I would say that it's the unique licenses and the support that we have at the top makes it a really good opportunity.
Oh, definitely attractive. Hey, Corey, what do you think about that?
I agree with everything Mark said about those unique license. I mean, we have a state that has created a system along with the citizens that allow for an amount of inclusivity and such unique licensing that if you can get the municipality to agree that you'll be a good faith actor, they can grant you some really unique zoning, such as Michigan Cannabis House zoning. We put in a request to be added to the overlay district. We're about 4 miles outside, but our property sits on the same block as 2 colleges. We're next to a residential. We're allowed to grow, process, retail, have a designated consumption lounge, and special events all on the same property. Now, from my understanding, speaking with the Michigan regulatory agent, we can even have dual consumption. So that means, say we want to have a fine dining event, we can allow alcohol consumption and cannabis consumption if we have all the valid license through the state and are following all the different codes that need to be followed. We'll have to look into that further as we progress through our business opening. But there's a lot of opportunity here in Michigan. We're a destination location, really. When you look at our miles of endless sandy beaches here on the West Coast, or all the forests that you have to go camping in, hiking in, we're really unique. We see a lot of people coming here. One of the things that we've done back before they issued the social consumption licensing is we began holding high-end elevated dining experiences. And if anybody's familiar with the Muskegon Heights area, it's pretty dilapidated as a city itself. I mean, if the water pipes freeze in the winter, the city can't repair them. The citizens go without water. So even the McDonald's shut down. We started holding these 10-course elevated dining events, and we started bringing in 100 to 150 people into this inner city. They were coming from Chicago, Indiana, Ohio. there's a lot that can be done here in Michigan, and I look forward to seeing others come in and just create a welcoming atmosphere for them to watch everybody be able to prosper. We got a robust industry that we can all participate in.
Can I add that we are
Mhm.
also a huge destination, I would say, in terms of just, I mean, we're one of the few states that's surrounded by water. So I think just all of the tourism that's going to come into the state of Michigan and the cannabis culture that we have here, I'd say is second to none. Maybe California. I know there's a bunch of Californians on the call. But, I mean, this side of the Mississippi, we are it. So sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I'd give you that, even from a Californian, Mark. Don't worry. Anything else on this particular question, Robin, Latoya, Rebecca? Or should we wrap this? I know we're at 2:00, so I do want to get one last sort of word of advice from everybody. So why don't we do that, Robin? Why don't you give one last really great piece of information as a takeaway for our audience today?
Well, we were talking about different license types, and we've got something called the micro business here. And the micro business is where you can grow and process and do retail all at the same location. And I think that people are kind of missing the mark on the potential there, because they're growing, they're building it out in a way that isn't attracting tourists, right? So you really want to have a situation where they can come in and see the plants, and they can see the through windows or something. And I haven't seen anybody really pull it off the way that I think that the drafting committee for Prop 1 really envisioned it done. And so, I do think there's potential for that model, but I'm not seeing it quite nailed yet. We'll put it that way. I think the micro business is kind of more like a brewery or wine vineyard model, right? And I think they, combined with the social consumption lounge license next door, I think there's a lot of potential there. Very much excited about the social consumption lounges. Would like to see some work done to allow, coffee and restaurants and things like that combined, so that people like us can go and, enjoy dinner and a glass of marijuana infused wine instead of alcohol, right? And so, that's something I'm looking forward to, and I think it fits our culture.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So Rebecca and Latoya, let's hear from you on a good last piece of advice for everybody here today.
I'll start. I think Michigan has a lot of room to grow in regards to brands. Brands are very popular on the West Coast. When you walk into a dispensary, you see all these different type of brands. But I think we're at the beginning stages of branding in Michigan, which means there are a lot of room for growth for all different types of brands. Women-owned brands like us, minority-owned brands, homegrown brands like us really have an opportunity to enter into our market and make a name for themselves. Since Michigan has a welcoming cannabis community, I think there's a lot of room for us to get unique with it and get creative with it. A lot of what Robin said with like the micro businesses, there's just a lot of room and things we haven't seen yet. So it's just a lot of room to grow. So I'm just really excited to be in a state that has such high quality, has a positive cannabis community, and really is at a stage where the sky is the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like if you look at Colorado and where they were when they started in 2012 with when they went recreational, where we started 2 years ago, if you're an investor, I mean, this is the ground floor opportunity for you. And so we mirrored a lot of our laws and our regulations and just the whole setup of the industry off of Colorado. And so if you missed your opportunity in Colorado, I think Michigan is really your next best opportunity.
I love that. Corey, what about you? Let's hear maybe one final thought for our group out here today.
If I had to say anything, one final thought: Michigan's welcoming. If you start experiencing hurdles, you start thinking that maybe what your goal is isn't obtainable. I'd ask that you stick with it. Really, if your heart's in this and this is what you want to do and you conduct yourself in a admirable fashion, I think you'll be very successful in Michigan's market.
Awesome. Mark, why don't you give us a closing final thought, and then I'm going to hand it back to Jake, and he's going to wrap this up for the day.
Sure. So I guess like a tidbit of advice I would give to anybody looking to get into the Michigan market, and really this goes for any market, but especially Michigan, is if you're in the cannabis industry, if you're running a business and you are not politically active and you are not acting as a lobbyist for the movement, you're doing it wrong. I think that if you are, whether you're running a retail, cultivation, a processing, or even a delivery, you should, I think it's important and imperative to be sure that you are educating every single lawmaker in your area, whether it's your state senator, your county prosecutor, your mayor, your whatever it is, even your federal lawmakers. At Home of Medicine, the first thing we did 12 years ago is invited in our mayor, our chief of police, our entire city council, our state senator, our U.S. Representative, and if they were for us, or if we think that they could have been champions, then we will support them monetarily, typically. And if they're against us, then we're going to educate them. And they need to hear from us. So the only thing I would say is that, everybody on this call, we're the experts in the cannabis world. Let's not let people that don't understand what cannabis is or what cannabis can do, the efficacy, make laws on our plant. We have to be the ones that make the effort to educate them and hopefully change hearts and minds. That's all I'd say. Thanks.
Hey, you can't bitch about something if you're not vocal about it first, and try to make sure that people understand the importance of these things. Thank you all so much. This has been great. Thank you for letting me spend a little time in Michigan from my home office here in Southern California. And Jake, why don't you take us back to the beginning?
Excellent. And awesome job moderating, Kim, and always such a pleasure to have you on. And all of our speakers tonight, oh my God, such a collection of amazing minds from Michigan. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. As we wrap up this town hall, you'll notice a webinar survey popped up. Please share your thoughts on today's program and let us know about other important topics you'd like to see us cover going forward. As a reminder, please visit arcviewaccess.com and Arcview social media channels. We're on every platform, except for like Pinterest, for all the latest activities and events at Arcview. Now, there are some upcoming programs I want to tell you about. First, our Women's Inclusion Network. There's a mentorship workshop where you help define and align your data for success, which is led by Adriana Hamans. This is for WIN members only, and it is June 21st at 2 p.m. Pacific. On Thursday, June 24th, we're hosting a webinar in collaboration with Green Tank. This is one of our partners to discuss the newest report we just released on vaping trends. This report is free. It is on all of our social media channels as we speak. So if you're in vaping or outside of vaping, it doesn't make a difference. This is a darn good report you need to take a look at. We're also looking forward to our next town hall, and we are headed to New York, the Big Apple, where Arcview Capital and Arcview Ventures are based. So you know that's going to be a good one, and that is Thursday, July 8th. Registration is available for both of these webinars. Just head over to arcviewgroup.com/events to sign up. And of course, a special thanks to our sponsor, Backcross Solutions. They're offering our audience a free cybersecurity assessment if you manage the Arcview Michigan Town Hall. Email Ajay and John at info@backcrosssolutions.com or visit their website at backcrosssolutions.com. All right. Thank you for joining us all today. And of course, be well, be free.